So we have negative 2 less than or equal to 5 minus 7 times 2a plus 3. So we need to simplify both sides and then solve. Simplify means apply the distributive property, gather the like terms together. And then after all that is done, then we start adding and subtracting to both sides to get a equals a on its own. So the goal of this is to end up with like a less than or equal to 4 or a greater than or equal to negative 1 or something like that. But the a must be by itself. That's the goal, right? But so the first thing we do again is we simplify. And the second thing is we solve. So to simplify, that's where we do the distributive property and we add like terms. The left of the inequality is already just a number. It's negative 2. So we don't have to actually do anything with the left. But the right is messy. So we need to simplify that. So can we just go 5 minus 7 and get negative 2? Why not? Right. You didn't apply the distributive property. Also, thinking about PEMDAS, the first thing we did there is we subtracted to get negative 2. Now, you can't start with subtraction when you're thinking about order of operations, right? And so that's why you can't do that. That is wrong. That would mess it all up. Now, you're supposed to do what's inside the parentheses. The problem is inside the parentheses we have 2a plus 3. Now, these things are not like terms, so we can't actually do anything with that, right? Because they're not like terms. So we would add that if we could, but we can't. So we can't do parentheses. But can we do a multiplication? And the answer is yes, and that's why we multiply the negative 7 in at this point, because we can find a multiplication to do. So following PEMDAS, we find a multiplication and we get negative 14a, then what? Minus 21. Good. And so the right of the inequality gives us this. Now, what would be the next step to simplify this? Yeah, 5 minus 21. 21 negatives and 5 positives makes what? Yeah, negative 16. Good. So we have negative 16 minus 14a. Now, can we simplify this any further on the right here? No. Yeah, so this is all simplified now. So our simplification is done. Now we get into solving, and that's where we add or subtract to both sides of the inequality. So, good point. You want to get a on its own, let's add 16. That's a good move. Yes, add 16. And that gives us 14, yes. Yeah. Now, we added to both sides of the inequality, so the direction stays the same. So it's negative 14 times a. How do we get a on its own? We need to divide by negative 14. Good. Divide both sides by negative 14. So on the left, positive 14 over negative 14 makes negative 1. Good. On the right, we get what? A, yeah. Because negative over negative is positive. 14 over 14 is 1, and we have a. So positive 1a or just a. Okay. We divided by a negative on both sides, though. So what do we do with the inequality sign? Good. It changes direction. So it goes in that direction. Now, if I read this from left to right, it says negative 1 is what? Negative 1 is, read it from left to right. Negative 1 is greater than or equal to a. Now read it from right to left. A is less than or equal to negative 1. So if I write this with the a here, what does it look like? Right. So it's a less than or equal to negative 1, right? Good. I'm going to stick it on number line, and I'm also going to do the interval. So here's a number line, here's 0, here's -1. What would it look like to graph a is less than or equal to -1? Yes, you do. You do a square bracket because -1 is included, and then what's less than or equal to -1? Things like -2, -3, -4, -5, all these numbers, right? And all the decimals in between, all the way towards -infinity. And that would be the graph, right? The line graph. Now, if I was to do the interval, you would have a min and a max. Okay, so what would the minimum and the maximum be in this set of numbers? Yeah, the minimum would be -infinity and the maximum would be -1. Is -1 included? Yes, so we do a square bracket because -1 is included. Because it's a is less than or equal to -1. Now, can we include infinity or -infinity? You can never get there, so that's why you give it a parenthesis. It's towards -infinity, but it never gets there, basically. Okay, and just for clarification, if that had said a is less than -1 without the less than or equal to, it would look like this. Here's your line graph with a parenthesis at the -1 going towards -infinity, and your interval would look like this with a parenthesis instead of a square bracket. So if it's less than, you would have the parenthesis. If it's less than or equal to, you have the square bracket. That's it. Got it? Beautiful.